Welcome to Bronze and Modern Gods. I am John.
And I'm Richard.
It's another Monday. We're here with you. We're going to answer some viewer mail again. We're going to spend some time with you. Thanks, everybody, for following us at Facebook and Instagram on Bronze and Modern Gods. If you are not, make sure you are, because we have live sales just out of the blue, and you want to be a part of that. Richard, you had one last weekend.
Yeah, it was so much fun. We had over 50 people show up and sold some funny books and, talk some smack. It was a good time.
If you want more smack talking, make sure you like this video. Make sure you're subscribed. Hit that notification bell so you know when a new episode goes live. You know what we do on this show? We have our underrated books of the week. We've got your viewer mail, the 25-year rule, and first, our hot book of the week. Richard, what is it?
This week, it's Doctor Aphra #1, specifically the Neff box variant.
What?
This is okay. I picked this one to talk about situational value, I guess.
Okay, all right. It's already sounding like a math theorem, but go ahead.
Well, no, it's this is a book that's valuable to certain people. Okay. This is not an AF-15. This is not a UF-4. This is a book that people who are collecting Dr. Aphra books are wildly after. This book was a part of the Neff box, which is a subscription box, kind of like Loot Crate. It was part of the Rogue One Star Wars Story Collectors box. Yeah, Neff is a headwear company. And they put this box together. They had a before this one, they had a Stan Lee box, apparently. And then they put this box together of Star Wars memorabilia. There were 3 different headbands that were Star Wars related. There was a figure that was Star Wars related, and then they had this comic book. So this comic book could not be purchased off the store shelves, could not be purchased directly. You had to buy one of these loot boxes to be able to get it.
There cannot be a lot of these.
No, that's definitely the case. I looked long and hard to try to find a specific count for the number of for the print run. I couldn't find it. Obviously, it's limited to the number of these Neff boxes that they sold. So I can't think that it was a huge number. These if you go to neffbox.com, they're no longer in business. So I can't imagine it was incredibly successful. So I'm predicting a small print run.
What gives you that idea? The fact that they're no longer in business?
Yeah, that might be a hit. The cover is gorgeous. A David Nakayama cover. I think it's a great cover. The reason why I picked it for the hot book of the week this week, a raw copy sold on eBay. It was not a 9.8 candidate as far as I could tell. Sold on eBay for $1,000.
Jeez.
$1,000 for this variant. Now, this variant is worth $1,000 to somebody, and that somebody most likely is either a completionist for Dr. Aphra, someone who likes David Nakayama's art, but I'm almost positive this is something that putting the right book in front of the right audience. If you find the person who wants this book, they'll pay $1,000 for it. If you find other people, which is probably a larger percentage of the collector hobby, they're not really interested in paying that kind of figure for this book.
Now, the census is interesting. There's no 9.8s.
No.
For a modern to not have any 9.8s on the census, that tells me there's not a lot of these. And the fact that the company went under is another hint, another clue. There are not a lot of these. That's crazy.
Yeah, I looked. Everyone that this is one of the books that's been on my radar. I'm a Dr. Aphra fan, and I've been looking at this book, and that's one of the reasons why this particular auction caught my eye. I was going to bid on it until it went over $500, and I don't pay that much money for a raw of this type. So I was watching it, but most of the copies that I've seen, and there's not been a lot on eBay, probably one every 3 months. The ones that I've seen all have color rub on them. So it makes me think that they're in these boxes. They're not protected. They're just jostled around, and they get some damage. And that's probably why you're not seeing 9.8s. That and the fact that they're just so rare. There's only 3 9.6s on the census. One sold in February for $985, kind of supporting this $1,000 price. if this was a $9,800, I would have bought it
Yeah.
as a raw, unqualified book that is subject to color rub. To me, it's a mountain I'm not climbing.
There are 3 9.6s, but there's only a total of 6 on the census entirely.
Right.
That's really insanely low. I have to wonder again if this is a thing. Well, obviously there's demand for it. If I was going to say if no one gives a crap, and that's why there's only 6 on the census, or no one knows about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the audience that bought this may not be aware of its significance or its rarity. So they bought the loot box because they wanted the Funko figure in the box, or they wanted the headbands. And the comic is one of those things. Oh yeah, okay, and I'll throw it in a box, or I'm just not concerned about it. So I think there's a factor of that in this. It's not comic book collectors were not the main focus for this particular loot crate.
Wow. That's a good one. Thanks for that. And by the way, are you okay? Are you in a hostage situation? I'm looking at your background this week. For people that are on YouTube, you can see, for the people listening on the podcast, Richard looks like he's being held prisoner somewhere. What's going on?
We are doing remodeling on our whole first floor. We've ripped up all the flooring. They're going to be knocking walls out. They're going to be building a brand new kitchen, and there's going to be a lot of construction here for the next probably 3 months. So pardon my dust if I am in a less than optimized environment. It's just because that's what I've got.
Blink twice if you need help. Okay, we're here for you. Let's move on to our favorite segment, viewer mail.
You've got mail.
I'll start off. We were talking about the Spider-Gwen, which will not go away. Our discussion about Spider-Gwen and Miles Morales and all the new Spider characters, and how the torch is being passed possibly to a new generation. Our friend Test It, not sure what we're testing, says, folks never seem to talk about the Spider-Man and Friends cartoon where Spider-Gwen and Miles play huge roles. No, I did not know about it. Kids are growing up with these characters in a very significant way across a range of media and cartoons, children's books, coloring books, sticker packs, what have you. Test It. That's a very good point. I don't have kids, so I don't see what's going on. Richard, your kids are in high school, so you're probably not seeing it as much as you would if they were younger. But yeah, I know that these I don't think Disney XD is even a thing anymore, but I know there are these kids cartoons on Disney Plus and stuff that feature Spider-Gwen and Miles. It's a good point.
It is. And until he brought it up, until Tested, I'm sorry if I'm assuming he before Tested brought it up, I had forgotten about the Spider-Man and Friends cartoon. It's not targeted to me. It's not targeted to my kids. So, and, it kind of falls, through the cracks for me. But it really does highlight the fact, and I have a question later on that brings this up, that there is a whole audience of people who are being brought up on Spider-Gwen and Miles that have not reached their spending potential yet. So I think this is a long-term thing.
25-year rule coming up later. All right. What is your first piece of viewer mail?
My first piece of viewer mail is from Comic Kebs. You want rare? Try finding a 1946 war book with a famous Golden Age cover artist with a CGC census of only 3 submissions. 7.0 being the highest grade, and the second highest grade, a 6.0, sells for under $500. Sometimes even I find it bonkers that my 8.5 CGC Batman Adventures 12 sells for way more money than a high grade Golden Age book. I really feel for people who collect Golden Age books because it is a difficult thing. The books are rare and difficult to find in high grade. When you do find them, they're either affordable because no one is collecting it, or they are incredibly expensive because they are first appearances of certain characters.
Yeah.
It's a tough market. I know of the comic book collecting community, Golden Age collectors have their own cliques. They have their own organization and ways of finding books. That is, to me, fascinating. So kudos to you for collecting those rare books.
I'm laughing because you said Golden Age collectors have their own cliques, and I'm imagining like high school toughs from the 50s.
Snapping their fingers like in West Side Story. Yeah.
Terry from Terry's Comics is like the leader, and Harley Yee. Here's my thing about that comment, Comic Kebs. It's a 1946 war book with a Golden Age cover artist, only 3, and it's only on the census, and it's selling for under 500. Well, what book is it? I mean, there are things out there like Golden Lad or whatever that nobody cares about, that are just dead properties, dead media, and there's just no demand because of that. Whereas, you know, Batman Adventures 12 is Harley Quinn. She's absolutely relevant right now. So, you know, I kind of get why some Golden Age books don't sell. I mean, I'm probably the only person that has a complete run of Tex Morgan from Atlas Comics, because I like Atlas Westerns, but you know, people like me are few and far between. So it's,
right. But you know, you've got artists like Schomburg, and you know, who are famous and for certain titles, certain covers. And if you find some of the more obscure work, you can sometimes find it for a more reasonable price. And maybe that's his goal here, is to find some of that kind of stuff.
But who under the age of 40 knows who Alex Schomburg is now? You know, I don't like saying or asking these questions. It's just something that is reality in a lot of respects. So, you know, a part of this is passing away into the mists of time. However, I wanted to talk to you about this. Okay, so first we have comic books that are selling to collectors for lots of money. Then it became, later on, video games started getting slabbed, and now those are selling for lots of money.
Right.
Then it became VHS tapes are getting slabbed and selling for lots of money. You know what I'm seeing now? Cassettes.
What? Really?
Cassettes. I see people selling cassettes that you go to Goodwill and get them for 50 cents, like a Dio Holy Diver cassette. They're selling for 20 bucks, 30 bucks. Yeah. So cassettes,
You know,
dead media.
Yeah, it is a dead media, but then again, so is VHS tapes.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It's like we keep finding hey, I'm waiting for mini discs to take off. I love me this Sony mini disc.
It's nostalgia, and I will not gainsay someone else's hobby. If you want to collect cassettes, crazy go nuts. It's not me. I will not be. But if that's what you're interested in, I hope you find the ones that you're looking for. It is interesting that we are collecting all of this obsolete media. And does that mean comic books fit into that as obsolete media?
Well, I was thinking about it today because I was, first of all, stunned in disbelief. But then I remembered, you know, why Golden Age comics are worth so much. People threw them away when they were done. They took them to Goodwill. They took them to Salvation Army or whatever, and they got rid of them. Cassettes. I got rid of all my cassettes years ago. I had so many cassettes. I had the little carrying case, the faux leather carrying case filled with cassettes that I bought at Camelot Music, and I took them all to Goodwill.
Yeah.
So they're gone. They're not around. They don't, you know, so here we are.
I remember your huge CD collection.
My CDs, I digitized all of them, took them to Amoeba and sold them for pennies on the dollar. And I'm glad I did, because boy, those things were bulky. But, you know, I'm waiting for the CD revival. Still, there were some CDs I had that sold for a lot. Reflex, Politics of Dancing. I think I sold that for like $400 on eBay.
Yeah, some of those Japanese CDs and, you know, foreign CDs can bring some serious money. But it's, again, it's rarity and collectability, and that's what drives some of these new collector hobbies. And to me, I'm excited. I'm happy that people are finding value in that nostalgia, because that means that's going to bring people into collecting, and then potentially ultimately to comic book collecting.
Maybe. Getting back to comics, my next piece of viewer mail is from Zoe's friend, who writes to us at bronzeandmoderngods@gmail.com. I recently discovered your channel and website, and I'm really enjoying it. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
The Bronze Age is definitely a sweet spot for my comic collecting, though I've just been watching your videos for a couple months. I've gone back and watched some old ones. Ew. One topic I don't recall seeing is bagged comics. That is the multi-mags that typically contain 3 comics in a sealed plastic bag. I'd love to see you delve into that topic if you haven't already done so. Keep up the great work. Well, thank you, Zoe's friend. Tell Zoe we said hi.
Yeah, hi.
We've talked about Whitman's, which
Mhm.
were these polybag things a bit, but yeah, the thing about these polybags is when Richard and I were coming up, they were really frowned upon. They were looked down upon. They were considered
Right.
reprints. They were considered the lowest rung of the collecting ladder. You didn't want these anywhere near your collection if it had that diamond and blank UPC. Ew. But now we see them selling for lots of money in high grade, especially things like the DC Comics Whitmans that are scarce, or like DC Comics Presents number 22 with Captain Comet. Some of the Star Wars Whitmans in high grade do well. I see Battlestar Galactica number 1, the Whitman, selling for $400, slabbed 9/8 on eBay, which blows my mind. I think there was Shogun Warriors Whitmans, Micronauts Whitmans, Secret Wars, Second Prince were
Yeah,
in those
right.
bags.
That's right.
GI Joe, later prints of the GI Joe books, like second and third prints. What part of the multi-packs that I find fascinating was when Whitman stopped distributing to newsstands entirely, and the only way they were distributing new comics was through those multi-packs. So there's a few months there where the multi-packs didn't get out to the toy stores or the department stores, and they sat in the warehouse and were eventually destroyed. There are some very, very scarce books that you could only find in multi-packs from those months where they didn't get a lot of distribution that go for hundreds and hundreds of dollars, including titles like Uncle Scrooge, number 179. My personal favorite, The Black Hole, number 4, which was only in a multi-pack that didn't get a lot of distribution. I've owned that book. I had a 7.0. I wish I had it back. So yeah, multi-packs are interesting. They
You know,
were
you also see people collecting the multi-packs unopened,
yes.
with it still sealed, and they keep it that way because it's a collector's item to have them in, the original packaging.
And you had earlier versions of the Marvel multi-mags in DC where they were not Whitman distributed. They were distributed by their regular distributors, and they don't have the diamond or anything. Especially DC Comics really experimented with it in the 60s. You'll find some vintage multi-packs from DC from that time era. Usually they're Superman related, like here's a Jimmy Olsen and a Lois Lane and an Action Comics, and lots of Legion Adventure Comics were in
Mhm.
multi-packs too.
Would you count all of the Walmart variants that we're seeing today as multi-packs?
It is the modern version of the multi-pack. As far as I'm concerned, they're being printed at the same time. They have exclusive covers on them. It's more than just a black plate change from back in the day. It's actually a separate thing. They're hard to find in high grade. We're seeing things, at least on the DC end of things, well, Marvel too, where they're putting books that have been sitting in the warehouse that were not distributed for various reasons. They were incentives, like 1 in 100s. I've gotten 2 copies of that Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man Frank Miller 1 in 1,000 sketch variant in
That's
Walmart
crazy.
multi-packs. I know that Ruby number 7, which never made it to stores because of the pandemic, has been found in the DC multi-packs recently. So it's the modern day equivalent, but maybe a little spicier.
Yes, definitely.
All right, what's your next one?
My next piece of viewer mail is from Suleiman Lives. Newsflash: there are a ton of fans of Miles Morales that are about 15 years from having disposable income. When
Mm-hmm.
that happens, Ultimate Fallout 4 will really be scarce because the remaining available copies will be purchased and put away. Yes, that's what I alluded to earlier. If you think someone who was a young kid who started off being a fan in 2011 of Ultimate Fallout, or in 20 was it 2016 that the movie came out, Spider-Verse movie.
Oh, it's after that. Was it 2018, right?
2018? Okay, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
It was pre-pandemic, so you know.
Pandemic, yeah. So another time.
Yes, exactly.
My point is, there are youngsters today who are young and don't have that disposable income. When it's been 25 years since their first a taste of Miles Morales, Spider-Gwen, the whole Spider-Verse in general, because it's so many more characters than just those two. Um, we're going to see another spike of values of these books, and we're seeing $3,000, $3,500 for an Ultimate Fallout 4 9.8 today. In 10 more years, I think that may be eclipsed by the value of the book at that point.
You said youngsters.
Yes, the little whippersnappers.
We're old.
We are old. And I promise at some point we're going to stop talking about Miles Morales.
Someday. My next piece of viewer mail is from Night Tiger Comics. We were talking about DC characters from the 80s that have lasted and had an impact. And Night Tiger writes, don't forget about the Blue Devils series.
Oh,
It
yeah.
came out about the same time as Firestorm Volume 2. It also had a Marvel Comics feel to it. Funny you say that, Night Tiger, because that was the other DC book that I read, because it was so Marvel-esque. Blue Devil was fun. It was a fun book. It was lighthearted. It was about a Hollywood stuntman who was dressed in a Blue Devil costume for a movie, very high-tech armor, and then he runs afoul of a demon who seals him within that Blue Devil costume that he can't remove. We never find out how he pees or poops.
Oh, that's a good thing to worry about. It's magic.
It caused stress in my life back then. Because like, how does he go to the bathroom? Maybe that's part of the spell. It handled that. But I love Blue Devil, and it had a good 2-year run, I think. When Paris Cullins, the artist, left the book, it lost a lot of its appeal because Paris Cullins was perfect for that book. And of course, now Blue Devil, I think, is in Justice League Dark, and he's really a demon, and it's all dark and DC angst, rain, gray tones.
They do seem to abhor color in that. Yeah.
Everything's got to be depressing. Nothing can be lighthearted anymore. It's got to be dark and man.
It cycles. It cycles. We'll arc around and come back to a more stable kind of mindset, hopefully.
I hope so. What do you have next?
My next piece of viewer mail is from Matt Hexamer. I have 2 teenage daughters, and even though my older daughter is aware of the original Spider Gwen Stacy, my younger daughter has no idea about her first life in Amazing Spider-Man. They both absolutely adore Spider-Gwen. The Into the Spider-Verse film rocked their world, and they think Spider-Gwen is the coolest. Hitching Gwen's wagon to Miles for the film was a brilliant move, and she is not fading away anytime soon, especially given her popularity with the younger audience. Okay, again reinforcing my point. But this is also a really cool point in that we've got teenage daughters. You've got women who are becoming attached to these characters, and I think that's empowering. Just like Miles is empowering to African Americans, because there's finally a Black character out there that isn't a sidekick. You've got a female character who's strong in herself and defines herself in Spider-Gwen, and it's someone to emulate, someone to look up to, and I think it's important. And again, given some time, these people are going to grow up, going to get great jobs, and going to be able to afford spending the big money on their first appearance.
It's not possible for girls to throw a rod for Gwen, is it?
I saw the comment about throwing a rod.
I just wanted to work it in 3 weeks in a row. All right. My next piece of viewer mail is from Todd E. Walnuts, who writes, another great show, and you guys keep me company when I was driving and listening to the show.
Oh, good.
Thank you both for the entertainment you provide. Has the CGC grading wait been shortened over the past couple of months, or is it still a waiting nightmare? I have a few books I'd like to have graded, but I don't want to send them off for 6 months. Well, we can only tell you our personal experiences, Todd. I did a big drop-off at WonderCon the first week of April, the last weekend of March, frankly. And they were received on April 7th, which was pretty quick in a week. The modern, which I had fast tracked, I paid the extra for fast track. They were graded and shipped on April 15th. So just a hair under, or sorry, just a hair over 2 weeks to be shipped back to me. That was lightning fast compared to how they have been. However, in that same drop off, I had fast track economy, which I paid extra for fast track. And that's been sitting in scheduled for grading since April 7th. So that's only supposed to be 35 days turnaround according to the site for fast track economy. And I'm still waiting. It might happen this week. So modern seems to be super zippy. Everything else seems to be business as usual. What has your experience been, Richard?
Well, I had a modern fast track and an economy fast track. Same as you. I got them back surprisingly within 30 days from them being received. Now that for being received is different than the books showing up at their facility. They actually have to open the box and then put them into the queue. That took the process of going from shipping to the queue took about a month. But once they were there, they moved pretty quickly. I was expecting the books to come back in 4 months. That's typically, you just get comfortable and you do yourself a favor just by forgetting about them because it's going to take a while. No, these came back in a reasonable amount of time. Now we have a mutual friend, Forrest, who sent in some books. He didn't send them in fast track though. And he is waiting a long time for those books to come back.
And so the moral of the story is fast track is worth it. If nothing else, Richard got his economy fast track back in 30 days. Mine's taken a little longer, but at least they're scheduled for grading. They're not just sitting there in received forever. So, it depends on what your goal is. If you're trying to maximize profit or something, then maybe you don't want to do fast track, or if you want to do a quick churn before something loses its heat, fast track might be worth it. If it's for your personal collection, you don't care, and obviously you care because you want to know. You don't want to have it sit there for 6 months. Spring that $15, man. That's how they get you.
I would not, if I'm looking to flip a book because it's hot today. CGC is just too unreliable for me to invest in a 1 in 50 and then try to get it fast track and turn around to sell it while it's hot. It could be 3 months before you get that book back.
Imagine the people that sent their Naomi's in modern non-fast track that are sitting waiting for the show was canceled this week, by the way, in case you haven't heard. So that's the kind of stuff where a fast track is good. Or if you're really a big fan of Naomi, you don't care and you want to keep it for yourself, then no, don't spend the money.
Yeah, I kept one. I kept it at 9.8 because it's a great character. Who knows? DC has canceled shows before.
It ended on a cliffhanger too.
Yeah, I hate that.
I know. All right, what's your last piece of viewer mail?
My last piece of viewer mail is from CJ. Derivative characters like Miles and Spider-Gwen. I just realized, I did not realize until now that every one of my comments is about. All right.
I wasn't going to say it, but geez.
Man, I'm sorry, people. I really am. I promise I will have diversity in my comments tomorrow or next week. Aren't the problems? It's their stories and lack of definitive moments, villains, etc. This makes them less interesting, in my opinion. And we're talking about proven track records of Spider, Peter. And he says, proven track record, you mean canceled and restarted books again and again, just like all those other low printed dead series that need to be revived with new number one. Ms. Marvel, Captain Marvel, anyone.
That's not a fair comparison. I mean, Captain America just relaunched last week.
But that's Marvel's business model today. It's instead of starting new storylines, they reboot they have their original numbering, but then they restart it at 1. But if you look at the cover, it still says 683.
I hate it.
I do too. It's artificial. and it is a money grab because they think people, and people rightly so, want number ones because, they think there's importance with number ones because historically that's been so. But recently, Marvel has really, really, really been abusing that whole the whole story. If I want Amazing Spider-Man number 10, there are probably 7 different Amazing Spider-Man number 10s out there, and it's difficult to know what you're getting, unless you see the cover. So in that point, that's more Marvel's fault than it is necessarily the storylines. I will say some of the villains and characters in the Spider Miles Morales books, the Spider Gwen books, those Into the Spider-Verse, whatever, Spider-Verse. That's what I'm trying to say. Can be a little mild, but I think also you've got to compare it to the villains that you've got for Peter. You've got, Doc Ock is a hard villain to come up and to compete with when you've got 50 years of 60 years at this point of storyline supporting that particular character. I think we'll have characters. The Assessor seems to be a popular character now. You've got the clones that I think was a good storyline. So I think you just got to give it an opportunity. You can't compare a character who's got villains who don't have the same kind of back catalog that Peter's villains have.
Well, I think CJ has a point. I can't name one Miles Morales villain except for the 2 you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe who's the Vulture female?
But she's not a villain. She's actually a love interest. So
right.
Yeah.
I can't name a single Spider-Gwen antagonist. Sorry, I can't name one.
Yeah.
So CJ is not entirely wrong. I will say this though. The current writers and the current Marvel company, Disney, has an issue that we did not have in the early 60s. And that is, why do you want to give Disney your intellectual property? If you have a truly innovative idea for a villain or a character, you're not going to give it to the Disney Corporation to own lock, stock, and barrel. You're not. So whereas you had Ditko and Lee being very inventive and freely giving their ideas, even people like Bendis, they're taking a second to go, wait a second, do I want to truly give this away? And I can't say I blame them. Another possible solution, if you look at the early Spider-Man villains, they're all animals. Mm-hmm. Lizard, vulture, octopus, kangaroo, gibbon, rhino.
That's true.
So why not go into the animal kingdom and do some more? We have not had the menace of the maddening marsupial yet. We have not had. Well, we do have Squirrel Girl. Okay, we do not have the
malignant manatee.
The manatee. All right, we'll stop. But the animal kingdom is full of species that you could mine for new characters. All right, Richard, I'm going to say one word, and that is segue.
The 25-year rule.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I always adjust my chair after the 25 years. I have to get ready. I have to get ready because we're talking about 1997, 25 years ago. Like we just talked about earlier, where the kids that are watching Spider-Gwen and Miles now, 15, 25 years, they're going to want to recreate their childhood. And that is what's called the 25-year rule. This week, we are talking about Daredevil Deadpool Annual 97. Now, this book came out when writer Joe Kelly was the writer on both Daredevil and Deadpool. So it only made sense to have these two characters come together for an annual. This was that period when Marvel annuals weren't really selling that well, so they would combine two different books to kind of goose sales and try to get people interested.
So it's not considered an annual for either one. It's considered an annual for both.
Exactly. Problem was both books were selling horribly at this time. This is right before Daredevil was actually canceled and rebooted under Marvel Knights, and Deadpool was limping along. So as a result, just over 45,000 copies of this were ordered by retailers, which sounds phenomenal today. But back in 1997, that was dire. The black cover also does not help with this book in high grades. The scarcity is there. This was a very hot book at one time. It sold for quite a few shekels. It was tough to find. You had Deadpool was hot. This was a tougher Deadpool book to find. Typhoid Mary is the antagonist in here. Demand really has cooled down for this book. 9.8 sold in February of last year for $170, while a 9.6 sold just this past December for $20.
Wow.
Less than the cost to have it slabbed. Ouch. What is this, a VV drop?
Oh, snap.
Daredevil Deadpool Annual. Great story. Now may be the time to pick it up if you have not. It just was historically an expensive book. And apparently it is not anymore.
Wow.
All right. Let's move on to our underrated books of the week. Richard, go ahead.
My underrated book this week is Justice League of America number 110 from 1974. This is the second appearance of John Stewart.
Really?
Yes, really. If the first appearance of John Stewart, which was in Green Lanterns 87, is too expensive, then this is a great opportunity to pick this book up before people catch on that this was the second appearance. It's harder to find in high grade because of the black cover, and it's square spine. This is a 100-pager. So
early one, too.
9.6 sold in 2021 for $385. The last 9.8 sale was in 2015 for $1,400. So, boy, that's going to be a pricey one if it ever comes to market. But this is a book I don't think is on anybody's radar. So you can find this in back issue bins pretty easily.
I think I have this.
Do you really?
It's the Santa Claus cover, right?
Yes, it is the Santa Claus cover.
Wow, yeah. I had no idea it was the second John Stewart.
Yeah, this is back in the era when they had the characters all aligned in a circle around some table and dead Santa standing. No one could have 4 chairs back then. Yeah, and a dead Santa Claus in the middle of the cover.
That alone makes this valuable. Dead Santa Claus cover.
Ross, for this, you can have them for $10 to $50 on eBay all day long. It is not an expensive book to get into. And who knows, if you can find a 9.8 of this book.
Good luck.
Yeah, you can have some serious ducats. John Stewart is a core member of the Lanterns. He's one of the 4 characters that I can almost guarantee are going to be in some kind of Green Lantern TV show.
The trailer for the animated John Stewart movie just dropped last week.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah,
they timely here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome.
So it's on the way. Wow.
Yeah.
Good one. I did not know that. I am wearing my giant size Man-Thing shirt today in honor of my underrated book of the week, which is Astonishing Tales number 12, which is the second appearance of the Man-Thing and the first appearance of the Man-Thing in regular Marvel Comics. Now, Man-Thing first appeared in Savage Tales number 1, which was a magazine that Stan Lee begged and pleaded Martin Goodman to allow him to publish. Finally acquiesced, went on the stands, and it was immediately canceled. Martin Goodman was not a man to wait for sales figures to come back. Just canceled it. And Man-Thing was part of Savage Tales. Astonishing Tales number 12 came out about a year later, and it featured a repurposed Man-Thing story originally meant for Savage Tales number 2 that was drawn by none other than Neil Adams. So these extra pages that were laying around in inventory were incorporated into the Kazar continuity. A 9.2 of this book sold this month for $720. So somebody's paying attention. Yeah. Now, just so you know, you're going to get a 2 for here for underrated books. Astonishing Tales number 13, which is the second part of the story, is the first cover appearance, period, for the Man-Thing. So if you are a Man-Thing specker, this is one on your list as well. Let's not forget, after the Multiverse of Madness, the Man-Thing is the guardian of the nexus of all realities. So if you're talking about the multiverse in Marvel, who's in charge of guarding that nexus but our favorite shambling swamp creature, the slimiest swamp creature of all, the Man-Thing.
Don't be afraid of him. Fear is not a good thing around him.
Yeah, whatever knows fear burns at the touch of the Man-Thing, which means John Stewart will never burn. Nor Hal Jordan. Does John Stewart have Hal Jordan's absence of fear?
I do not know.
The Man Without Fear, Daredevil.
Yes.
He won't burn. Let's make a list of all the people that will burn. Let's see. Mr. Fear, he'll burn real quick. All right, enough of that. Hey, thanks everybody for joining us. Richard, remind everybody where they can find us during the week.
During the week, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Bronze and Modern Gods. Or if you're like a web kind of guy, you can go to bronzeandmoderngods.com.
Freshly updated for your perusal. Thanks, everybody. Make sure you hit the notification bell, hit like, hit subscribe. You never know when we're going to go live, and you want to be a part of it. And we will see you next time.
Everybody stay safe.